Did I just lose you there for a second?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And it looks like the slides have disappeared as well.
Yeah.
Let me try that again. There we are. Hopefully you can see the slide.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, we can see.
There we are. Okay, so yeah, just a little bit about us in the improvement team. So you can see we provide various training modules and options there. And what I'll be doing at the end of the session, the slides have been made available to you as well as the recording as well. So there's a little bit more information about us, about what we do, and a bit about today's session as well. In this workshop, it is a workshop, not a presentation, or not just a presentation. We hope to discuss those 4 headings there. So what the scrutiny function is and what it's meant to achieve, the role of the chair and the vice chair, an approach to questioning, and how to make an effective contribution to scrutiny. And I am mindful today that we've got a healthy representation, healthy mix of councillors, I believe co-opted members, and officers as well. So that's great. So we get a different perspective from both sides, if you like, from the members' perspective and from the officers' perspective as well. So it is informal. Questions and observations are welcomed. Again, really important if you could be respectful of different perspectives and contributions. And it is really meant to sort of prompt food for thought. So it's not intended to tell you what to do, but to help you develop your own approach, give it your own thoughts, your ideas. And maybe this will be the first time that you've had this opportunity to get together for a while to discuss some of these things. So you might be able to reflect on your experiences so far, and also then, if you're newer or relatively new to it, an opportunity for you to ask questions. And as always, there's no such thing as a silly question, so please don't worry about that. But if you could raise your digital hand if you want to make an observation or raise a question, that would be great. Then I can call you in order. And just one other thing, really, because we've got such a lot of people today, I may not always spot whether you're a councillor or not a councillor. Are we all okay with first name terms? Yeah, I can see lots of nods. Thank you for that. And of course, we've got the team here as well. So if you've got any questions following the session, then you've got Sarah on the team to support you with that. So just to show it's just not all about me, and it's always helpful to get some early thoughts. So what, in your opinion, or why, in your opinion, is scrutiny important? And what is scrutiny? What's it about? Any thoughts? As I said, there's no such thing as a right or wrong answer. But if you've been involved with scrutiny from an officer or a member perspective, what are your thoughts about that? I got MJ.
Michelle Jones, yeah.
Hiya, Michelle. Michelle, are you still on mute? No. Michelle, it looks like you're still on mute. Okay, looks like we're having some technical issues with that one. Oh, that's okay. Don't worry, Michelle. That's fine. any other thoughts or any thoughts at all? We haven't had any yet, and there's nothing worse from a presenter's point of view than silence. So don't worry about making a comment. It'll be welcomed. Did I see one there from Angela?
Feeling sorry for you because there's nothing worse than having absolute silence on the other end when you ask a question, isn't it? I think for
Absolutely
me,
right, Angela.
Scrutiny is there to look at, bringing officers into account and council and having a critical friend to review the things we're doing, and does it fit in with the council agenda, and is it right for the people we serve in Merthyr Tydfil, in a nutshell. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Lots of helpful points there. Yeah, critical friends and holding to account and so on, really, really important. And what I'll do, I'll come on to another slide in a minute that hopefully summarizes a lot of this. But it is about that. It is about holding to account to a point. But it's part of your governance model. So you've got the arrangement that says you've got the cabinet model. They make a lot of the decisions, not all, but most of them. And then, of course, they have to be held to account by the other members and so on. So absolutely. I can see Ellis. It's nice to see you.
Good to see you, Gareth. All right. Yeah. So as well as accountability, transparency, improving decision making, using our resources effectively. Can we improve the process that we're undertaking within the council? There's a bit for me about scrutiny. Expand on that transparency in terms of improving public confidence and trust in us as an organisation. There's lots around scrutiny for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And it is about improving constantly. It's never settling with what you've got. It's always about moving forward, because your challenges are going to get more difficult, especially now as the financial challenges build up. But even if they weren't there, continuously improving is really, this is really important. And of course, you're a public organisation, so you need to be held to account for the money that you're spending. But not only that, it's the level of performance as well. So people are happy with the service they get, and they can, hold the council to account. Andrew.
Hi, Gareth. Yep, sorry, there was a delay then, my camera coming on and my microphone. But for me, as a manager of policy and performance, I think it's also important around having that critical friend challenge, going back to what Angela said, around our policies and our key changes within the organisation before they go to wider members. I think not necessarily in a formal committee either, if it's within a workshop environment, but to have that view from both elected members, our other members as well, but then using that information to build and strengthen our key documents. So it's making sure that we do have input, and also using scrutiny perhaps as an avenue to the public, and making sure we do have our public voice heard as well, in feeding into our strategies and our key documents.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Again, some really good points there. It speaks a lot, I think, about your approach to transparency, and wanting that engagement and wanting the critical friend approach to it. Really important. And a lot of these points, they're going to start to come out hopefully during the session. I'm going to move us on because we've got a fair bit to get through. But in summary, what you've said there, so yeah, it's an essential part of good governance. It's a really important part of your model, and it's there to make sure that it keeps you on track. So you're there to achieve your intended outcomes, and always working in the public interest. That's the goal. So you're working for them. And of course, you are members of the public within your own communities as well. So indirectly and directly, you're always going to benefit from it. So you've got some really good information on your website. So I've had a look at that. Look at things like your constitution, and there's also a practical guide to your scrutiny arrangements. And it picks up on a lot of these points. So it is about making the right decisions in the right way, in the right time, and in the right place. And it's not always in this setting or in a formal setting, a committee room, or maybe in a council chamber. There are other alternatives for you, and we'll explore some of those now. And even things like site visits, so you can get out and about, you can see firsthand what you're scrutinising. There are all sorts of options you can pick up on with that. So it isn't about sat in front of a screen or a report, and that's that. So it's about making it interesting, making it real, and connecting with your communities. So so services and any services delivered on behalf of the council are jointly monitored. So it's not just you as a single entity, but there is a slide in a second that talks about the other aspects of scrutiny where you do it jointly with others. But again, it's about everything's got to be delivered to an appropriate standard. We all know that you want that. But also with that one eye on improvement, that constant improvements you're always developing. The point has been made about the voices of the public. They must be heard. And what are their expectations? And does the service meet their needs and priorities? Managing expectations is a different point again, but and that's part of the challenge for you. You can't do everything. You don't have the financial resources to do everything. So it's really important that you manage your business processes, your resources, your finances, your services really effectively. And that's where scrutiny comes in. It makes sure that it feel like it keeps it honest. So decisions are transparent, and decision makers are held publicly accountable for the quality of their decisions. I don't think there's any objections to that. So how does it do it? Well, you identified some of them already, and it can make it genuinely can, and I believe this because I've seen it in action in Merthyr, because I was fortunate enough to come to a self-assessment of your scrutiny arrangements last year, but I've seen it elsewhere as well, where scrutiny really does make a difference. And this is how you can do it, or this is how it's done. So you've got the pre-decision scrutiny, in advance of any cabinet or council decision. The phrase that we use, we slightly guarded with this because I know we've got all the councillors here today, or from all aspects of the council, including the cabinet. It is there as a safety net. It's to stop them screwing up. So you give that constructive challenge early on before it gets to a point where you have to try and recover a situation. It's about performance monitoring, particularly if concerns have been raised. And I know through discussions with the team in your side that you do pose thematic reviews, deep dives, and so on. So you have workshops again which help you come to that decision, or help you to challenge that decision, help you to make sure that you've got that constructive, that helpful, friendly challenge before things get too far. And you can review decisions, see if they're having the desired effect, the desired outcomes, and so on. And then lastly, calling, subject to your local arrangements, and we've got a slide on that in minutes. I mentioned just now that we do scrutinise other organisations as well. So things like public service boards, the CJCs, collaborative services. You may have joint scrutiny committees as well. So it's not just about Merthyr Council on its own. It's about others as well, where you do provide joint services, although you're part of a much bigger and wider setup. Okay, so involving the public, that's been mentioned a few times already. And it is important. And I just picked this up from your website that Merthyr Tydfil welcomes and encourages active participation. So you're there. It's not something that you're hiding. It's something that you encourage, and you want people to take part and to contribute to it. I guess the issue with public participation is that where you have issues that are emotive, or they've got a lot of public feeling going on behind it, you are going to get the interest. You'll naturally get it then. The challenge you've got and others have got is trying to maintain that interest where maybe some of the subject areas are not quite as exciting or not quite as impactful at the time. But nevertheless, the opportunities are there. And the more you can do to encourage that, the better. And Scrutiny does provide lots of opportunities for the public to get involved. So we've got some suggestions there. And the forward work programme is an interesting one. So the idea is that they can suggest topics for that. And I think your work programme is really, really important because for those councillors who are sat on scrutiny committees, or you're responding to them, or possibly if your officers supporting them, you'll know this is it takes time, it takes effort, and you've got to support it. So with that in mind, if you can plan this in advance, so you've got your programme and it's meaningful and it's at the right level, you can make the most of that opportunity throughout the year. But you can also make the most of the opportunity, for the rest of this administration term as well. So you can plan it properly, and everybody else around you, around the process, can also do that as well. So to add a little bit on the work programme there, you can suggest questions to be asked at scrutiny meetings, so they can do that. Participate in evidence gathering, again, depends on the issue, but I think you'll get greater or lesser interest in that, depending on what it is. Provide personal experience of the services they've received, or interactions they've had with the council, and they can observe and even speak at scrutiny committee meetings. Again, I've looked at your constitution and it talks there about that's fine. But again, what you want to stop people doing is just dominating the meeting and so on. So it says quite rightly, and this is not unusual, that everyone will get 3 minutes per speaker to address the meeting. But the opportunity is there if they want to do it, and it's really important that they make the most of that. And then act as co-optees. If they've got any relevant experience, particular skill, area of expertise. Now you've got a number of co-opted members on your various committees. And again, that's really important that you get the right people there. As it says, with the right skills, the right background. And it'll also help, I think, to in terms of improving representation on the council as well. So if you've got things like gender imbalances and so on, there's an opportunity for you there to influence that more so than through the ballot box, where it is the public that's voting. But this is where you're looking at getting the right level of skills and expertise and representation to help the scrutiny process. Is everyone okay with that? Any questions? Yeah. Okay, so some examples of typical scrutiny activity. I won't read them all out verbatim, but you can imagine if you've got potential school closure, an in-depth review of that would be really, really helpful. That's at the appropriate level. It's going to be very much in the public domain, I would imagine. And again, in the example we've got there, you might find that mistakes are made in the consultation process, and though that could save a costly judicial review, but also it's the reputation of the council, and the delays and the the added difficulties that's going to cause you. So again, this is where scrutiny comes in, and it can help just smooth that way, make it more thorough, and make it more complete, and provide that safety net. Again, this has been in the news recently, monitoring the performance of the home school transport service. And again, these are actual examples. So, scrutiny has discovered evidence that standards of transport vary across the council area and enabled improvements to be made. This doesn't relate to Merthyr, but it does relate to another council. So you can see the sorts of things where scrutiny can start to add value. And it isn't just about, or it isn't at all about, a different means of opposition to the controlling group. Yeah, as you can see the next one and the third one down. This is about waste and recycling, and providing that reassurance that the recycling wasn't being sent overseas for disposal. So it's a different type of issue, but nevertheless, it's at the right level. And it just demonstrates that the council is doing its job properly, and you've got those safeguards in place. So it's about the reassurance value, and everybody is kept informed. Point has been made already about transparency, good example of that. And cybercrime, so again, really important. It's the sort of thing you can ask, that the appropriate actions are there, to mitigate any likely risk. Any queries or questions on those? No. Okay. So, how does it work in Merthyr? So you've got 5 main scrutiny committees. Is everybody aware of that? Yeah, we've listed them there. So you've got your corporate support and resources, regeneration, housing and public protection. Apologies for the font of the next one. Yeah. That's the learning and the LGES, neighbourhood services, countryside and planning, and the last one, social services. So just pausing on those headings there, they cover a really broad range of services. And if you look at some of the big ones, where you've got things like learning, education, and social services, inevitably those are going to be the ones that take up the lion's share of your budget, not just yours, but every local authority. So there's a lot of responsibility comes with proper scrutiny arrangements, and you don't just leave it to others to make those decisions. You've got that opportunity there to provide the safety net, constructive challenge, and making sure that things are done properly, and everything stays on track as you want it to be, or as close as possible to where you want it to be. Again, it talks about, and it recognises this in your documentation, scrutiny being an essential part of your governance structure. So it's acknowledged as that internally. And again, it's to review or scrutinise decisions. Again, sorry for the clumsy group in there, or actions taken by the council, the cabinet. The next one should have been on the line underneath, or the public services board. So you're playing that part, you're making that contribution, and as officers, you're supporting that. We'll come on to the information part of it at the minute, which will help members to do that in the spirit that it's intended. So this is what it's meant to do. So making reports or recommendations to the council or the cabinet, really, really important. Come back to the point that your time is precious. it's very easy to say, well, if cabinets are making all the decisions and that's restricted to a smaller number of members, well, the councillors can't be that busy, can they? Now, I'm glad I'm not in the same room as you when I said that, because we know that everybody is really, really busy. So it comes back to the point of making the most of your time. So if you are going to make reports or recommendations, make sure that, and we'll come on to this a little bit more in a while, that they're meaningful. And you don't just have scrutiny committee meetings where you've got lots of reports where they are for noting, because we haven't really gone through perhaps the full purpose of what it's meant to be there. For noting, is it making a difference? Is it holding others to account and providing that safety net? I suggest probably not. So recommendations are really important. You're there to enable the voice of the public to be heard. Again, that's really, really important. And there is an opportunity to do that now. We've spoken at length about transparency and how important it is. And this is an absolutely golden opportunity for that to happen. So the council is seen as an organisation that does that. It listens and it pays attention and responds as best it can. And if it can't, these are the sorts of things that are going to come out in scrutiny in terms of why the council can or can't do something. But at least it's transparent, and at least you've got the decision makers there. And again, yeah, calling decisions made by cabinets and officers. I think that's really important. Where things haven't quite gone to plan, and where you want to get a bit more detail, a bit more information about it. Again, scrutiny provides that opportunity to you. So, apologies for the slightly full slide, but it does show where scrutiny fits into the process. And you're not on your own, so you can see the council, the cabinets, other committees as well. And then it was scrutiny, so it's playing that important role, making sure again that things are scrutinised properly, and it's not just something that pays lip service, or shouldn't be, to the way decisions are made in the council. All of this information will be in the, well, you've actually got access to this now because you've got the guide to scrutiny, so it'll explain that there, as well as the other details about how it works in the council. And there you've got the, again, it's an extract from the same guide, so this information is available to you. And you can see how it goes through the process of, forming ideas, decisions, accepting reports, and so on. And then eventually, hopefully, those decisions will be put into place, and they'll result in positives and outcomes, outputs and outcomes and actions. But you've got that visual guide there. It's there. It'll guide you through it. And it shows that, again, it's not just something that you do because you might see it as an encumbrance, but it's a valued part of the process, and it's something that needs to be done, because otherwise you're not giving that proper check and balance. All okay so far? Yeah. So, one of the important roles within a scrutiny committee is the role of the chair. Any thoughts why that's important? What should the chair be doing in terms of a scrutiny committee? Yes, but some of these can equally apply to other committees as well, but specifically around scrutiny. Any thoughts? Have we got any experienced chairs on the meeting today? Yeah, I suspect we may have. What sort of things do you think you've been expected to do, asked to do, or things that can help you in your role as chair? And I know you've got some good shares in Merthyr, because I've seen some of your meetings. You know, honestly, I never thought I'd come to Merthyr, especially after the self-assessment, and hear stunned silence coming back from the participants. There must be some thoughts on what is a good chair. Sarah.
Yeah, so I suppose it's about sort of helping facilitate and manage the discussion, isn't it? You know, whilst in the committee or the workshop or whatever form the scrutiny activity is taken. And I suppose getting the best out of the committee members, and sort of helping members, I suppose, to agree on the most appropriate and effective questioning strategy then for the meeting, you know, to get the most out of that discussion. And I suppose ensuring that, you know, a good set of recommendations, you know, wherever possible, come out of that meeting so that they can help sort of, you know, they can go forward to Cabinet and or Council to, you know, help improve the overall decision-making process.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Lots in there, definitely. It's not just a single role. It's not just sitting in the hot seat and taking things from there. There's an awful lot to be doing and a lot to control. But I don't think anybody would disagree with those. But if you do, please put your hands up, and we'll come back to that in a second. Andrew.
Gareth, I suppose for me as well, it's not just that, like you've alluded to, really, not just the meeting itself. It's all that goes on around the meeting. So, for example, the forward planning, making sure that everybody's voice is heard, that the forward plan is a good assessment of what needs to be scrutinised, being flexible to be able to move that plan and move the way scrutiny is delivered throughout the year to make sure that it meets the needs of the organisation, making sure that everybody's voice is heard, officer and member and co-opted member, being the glue really that pulls it all together. Now, another thing that we started to look at previously was how chairs of different committees interact with each other. So the role of sharing best practice within the organisation and externally, thinking outside the box in how to approach different meetings depending on the need and the agenda item. So it's much more than the actual meeting itself. I think it's that wider role of the chair.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And it's why we do a whole separate session on the role of the chair. It is far more than you know, presiding over proceedings at the time. It goes far wider than that, and it is that coordinating, it's that controlling aspect of it. There's a whole lot more involved with that, and it's a really important role. It's a pivotal role. If the chair isn't inclusive, doesn't engage properly, inevitably, I'd suggest that's going to find its way into the well, how effective that committee is working and how it interacts with everyone around them. So definitely, Ellis.
No, I think you've just covered it in your sum up there, Gareth. So for me, the chair always sets the tone of the meeting. So that new, you know, impartiality in terms of encouraging debate and, you know, a collaborative agenda. That for me is always controlled by the chair. So you know, as you said, it's extremely important in terms of how the chair controls that meeting, really.
Yeah, thank you, Ellis. It is because it sets the tone from the top. It's that everybody's looking at the chair for direction, how to behave, how to react, and so on. Is really important. I'm just thinking from some of the members' perspectives. Do you have anything you'd want to add to that? Are there anything from your side that you say, yeah, these are some of the other things that make a good chair? How do you get on with the officers? Yeah, is that a good relationship? Bill? Oh, Bill, are you on mute? Yeah, I think we.
Am I right? Can you hear me?
I can.
Right. I was a chair of a social services scrutiny 3 years ago. And there's two ways to look at it. First of all, you've got to have a good working relationship with the officers to take it forward. Secondly, you've got to have a fair working relationship with the members, because you're there, you'll have the debate, you'll have the arguments, you'll have yes or no, and then you take it forward. One of the big issues I had was the reports. Sometimes the members saying the reports were too thick, too big, and not enough information going in. So we changed all that, and I worked tidy. But you got to have a good relationship with the officers to understand the department, and like working joint meetings, working days, because you come in as a councillor, you think you know everything, and fair enough, you walk in. You don't know what happens in the department. You got to know what the department is operating, what they can deliver, and the staffing role and everything else. So it's not straightforward as scrutinising. You got to know the department. Because we had a scrutiny meeting this morning, and to be honest, there's a lot of staff there, of officers. But again, there's a lot of work in there, the legal side. What you got to know, and it's you can't get it all in one go. You got to discuss it and find out what's happening. But that's as a chair of scrutiny, you got to have a good work relationship and have the full facts. And the last word of all, you got to have the truth. You can't have half measures. This might not happen. That will happen. You got to know what happened and what's the funding package.
Yeah, it's lots in there. Some of those interpersonal skills, they're really, really important. But to get to know the personalities, and you were talking there about the officers and so on. I think that's really important, because I guess likewise they need to get to know you as well, to understand your style and your approach. That's really important. And it is a difficult balancing act, because you've got to look after the members who are attending as well. You've got members of the public, so you've almost got to have eyes in the back of your head in some ways, and keeping everybody on board and engaged. It's not a straightforward task, that's for sure. And in terms, you mentioned about the reports, in terms of the volume of reports. Is that a lot for you to get through? I mean, you gave an example there where it was, but generally speaking, we hear this a lot, that does add to your workloads, because you've got to get through all the reports, you've got to understand them. And as you say, you can't be an expert at everything. So it is a tricky...
You can have the reports come in, you can read it, but some of it you don't want it there. It's dead words, isn't it? Right? You just want to know of the function, how's it running. You should know part of the history of the department, but then you can work it from there. You're there for one reason, to improve it. And if you can't pick it up in between, well, you shouldn't be there, should you?
I think it's really important, but of course you've got to take the other members along with you as well, who they need to.
Yeah, but see, that's members as well.
Yes.
If there were 3 members reading a report, 2 knows what's it all about, and you take all the dead wood out, and 1 don't, what chance you got?
Yeah, so it's being concise, it's being precise with the information, so you've got it. I think as well it helps, from the officer's perspective, that they understand then that it's not about volume, but it is about the content and you know, being clear about what's needed. So again, it's that dialogue that needs to happen beforehand. It's about preparation, pre-meetings, getting the culture right, getting the tone right, so that you know, everybody knows and is clear really what's expected, and nobody is providing information because they think they should, but maybe it's not always needed. Having said that, I'm sure there are times when sometimes it is needed, but it might not seem as if it is. So again, it's that dialogue, it's that conversation with the officers and your other members as well that will give you that that assurance, so you get the balance right. But coming back to the work program, if you know what your work program is in advance for the next year, you can spread these reports out so that you can manage them better. So it hopefully will make things easier for you, but it doesn't mean that you know, there's any less scrutiny going on. It just means it's planned, it's slicker across the year.
You got to have a good work program. I agree there, and I hope I had one overall. But at the end of the day, people want to realise that you are making a decision and you got to make the right one.
Yeah.
And you got to I said the scrutiny don't make decisions, make recommendations. That's the one thing forward.
But you come to that conclusion. Sorry, Bill, you cut across. You come to that conclusion. You've assessed everything, you processed it, and you got that recommendation ready to make. Then, so, but again, it's making sure you've got enough information and enough opportunity to consider it. Back to some of the earlier slides, you know, the right place, the right time, and so on. So there's lots to sort of try and balance with that, and it isn't easy. I've got a slide there.
Sorry, I gotta give my apologies. I gotta leave now. I got a meeting with the police.
That's okay. Thank you, Bill.
There's a pack meeting 5 o'clock. It's been arranged monthly, so I'll aim for a bit of stick tonight. Now I'll come back to you on scrutiny.
That's fine, and thank you for your contribution. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks.
So we've got the slide there. Then talks a little bit more about what the chair does. So it's not just about holding court and facilitating the committee. Yeah, it's working with the committee, the vice chair, and officers, and then taking the lead on things like, and all of these have been mentioned. Maybe not the second one there so much. Development of a forward work program, that's absolutely key, so you can manage what you've got and allocate resources to it. And some of those, don't forget, might mean that you're going to visit off-site. So again, these things take more ranging. Agenda planning fits into it, but you know, agendas are fine. I mean, they're you know, to keep some sort of structure to it. But if they go on and on, again, that is a demand on your time as officers and as members. And some of those issues might be really important, and you need more time in some issues than others. So it's just to make sure that everyone gets the right opportunity and the right amount of time to consider everything. Making sure you've got the information that we need. So when the committee needs the information to scrutinise things properly, yeah, you need to get that. That links back to that relationship building, making sure that people know early enough in advance as to what they want, being clear about it, so they've got the right information, and you're not left in a situation on the day where there's lots of good information, but in amongst it, the stuff that you really didn't need or want or expect. So it's being clear about that. So I think that helps everybody. Yeah, so anyone outside the committee, but they're involved, you know, the co-optees, the public, cabinet members, and so on, they need an early heads up. So the earlier they find out about these things, they know about them, the better, because that can be planned and structured into their schedules. Yeah, I'm working with the committee to develop questioning strategies. I think it's going to be very difficult. Sorry, we will come on to some of the questioning strategies in a minute. But if you haven't thought about those things beforehand, if you haven't prepared them, the risk is that you turn up to a committee and everybody that because they haven't discussed it before, because they haven't given it any thought, it might work absolutely fine. It might be brilliant, but it might mean that people don't know what to ask. It's not coordinated. It doesn't look joined up. And maybe then, questions going to be asked that are not appropriate. There's all sorts of things that can happen there. So again, developing the strategy. So it's what to ask and who asks it. That's important as well. We talked just now about being inclusive and making sure that everybody's got a chance to have their say and be involved. This is a good way of doing it. So if you can do that beforehand, better, or at least give it some thought. So managing meetings, we should clear objectives. Why are you there? What's it all about? What are you trying to achieve? Effective contributions and useful outcomes. And remember as well that it may be for some, it's unfamiliar territory to them. People have been recently elected or recently come into a role, whatever it might be. It's really important to make sure that you capture those contributions and make sure that it is inclusive. So there's lots going on there. And then identifying recommendations for the cabinet or the council, and it's really important to be clear on what they are, because otherwise any scope for confusion or misunderstanding, it's going to make it more difficult then for that scrutiny to keep track of what it's doing. And is it really being effective? Is it providing the safety net? Is it holding to account? Probably not, and not as effectively as it could do. So lots for the chair to do. And then, of course, there's the vice chair. Now, this can be a very difficult role because you never know. 9 times out of 10, the chair might be there, and she or he might be absolutely fine. You come to rely on them, depend on them, and they're always there. There will always be a possibility that they can't, so somebody has to be prepared to step in. So it's all the duties of the chair in their absence. Now, some of that relationship building would have gone on already, but again, what I guess we're trying to say is it's not just the chair on their own, but they should always think about what happens if it's that scenario that they're not there. So to involve the vice chair is really important. And if you are in a position where you either are or want to be a vice chair, these are the sorts of things you need to think about and to make sure that your voice is shared in that capacity. There might need specific support to the chair in meetings, so depending on what that might be, it can help. And sometimes it could be a conflict of interest, and the chair may not be able to be there anyway. They may have to step out to the meeting, so that could be an interesting one. And then leading on any areas that have been allocated to them could be part of an investigation, maybe, or a workshop that they're committed to supporting. So lots of things they can do, and they'll be seen as somebody who is in that position of vice chair, either aspiring one day to be a chair, or if the chair isn't there for a particular meeting, they're the ones who will be taking that central role. So not an easy one. Lots of preparation. You may not always be called to do anything. So we talked about what the chair and the vice chair do, but what do committee members do? What's expected of you as scrutiny members? Any thoughts on that? And again, I've never yet heard a silly question, and I've never yet heard one that's inappropriate or anything like that. So, any thoughts on what you should do as members? What about in terms of some of the preparation work? Yeah, Sarah.
Yeah, so I think you touched on it there, didn't you? You've got to be prepared, haven't you? So whatever, and I know sort of Bill touched on it earlier, didn't he, in terms of if that's a report or if that's research or data or whatever it is that's coming through in advance of the meeting. So be as prepared as you possibly can. And if there are any pre-meetings, etc., that you are invited to, those are important. And then be sort of, I suppose, present and engaged in the discussion, and ensure that you are, bringing in relevant views and points of interest into the wider discussion.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Sarah. I think people need to be organised. So preparation is absolutely key. I can't believe that I've not had any more comments from members on that one, because I know you're really, really busy. I've seen the members' workloads surveys, and there's an awful lot of work that goes into being a councillor. But these are the things, and Sarah, I think it picks up on some of the things that you've said there, what it does. So undertake training. So everybody is here today to take part in it. I know it's a refresher session, and you may have gone through induction training before, or maybe a similar session around questioning skills or chairing skills. But it's making sure that your development is up to date, because you're learning from the session itself, but also the views that are expressed in it. So it's listening to what others say, and then picking up on, it's that, I was going to call it cross-sector learning, which it can be if you're scrutinising joint committees and so on, but it's making the most of those shared experiences, because you all bring something. You all bring something different. You've got your own life experiences. You may have your own skill sets because of your own professions, whatever it might be. But that's what you bring to the table. But also, you're there to represent others. So you picked up what others have said to you. You've got that democratic mandate to do that. So it's important really that you take part in it. And whenever we take part in sessions like this, there's always learning for ourselves, but it's the learning that we impart in others as well. So that's really important. Thorough preparation, and try and set time aside for that. So you've got time to read whatever you need to read, or speak to whoever you need to speak to. So you've got that level of understanding, and it can prompt questions, and one question can prompt another. So, and all of this builds up your understanding of whatever it is you're scrutinising. So really, really important. Attending any pre-meetings. Just a point on pre-meetings. Has anybody got any concerns about those around predetermination issues? So being seen to make decisions before the actual meeting itself. No, I only ask because I know elsewhere some have sort of expressed concerns about that. All I'd say to you is, if you find yourself in that sort of circumstance, that pre-meetings are fine. They help you to plan properly, to plan your strategies, and to do everything that would be expected of you as a member. You can be predisposed to an idea or a view or a thought, or an opinion, whatever it might be. But as long as when you go into that meeting that you keep an open mind, and don't make a decision before you've gone in there, or you've heard what's been said and all the evidence, then you should be fine. But it does help you to plan much better if you have the pre-meetings. We've just spoken about the role of the chair. There's more to it than being somebody who just presides and calls people to speak. Just managing the actual meeting itself. But you can support the chair in terms of establishing questioning strategies. So where are you going with it? You've been asked to scrutinise something, and you called it in. Why are you there? What's the purpose of it? And being clear on that. So you've got a strategy, and they're not just random questions that don't look joined up, and they're not working towards a common objective for that particular meeting. Asking questions. It can be tricky. Can be a little bit daunting if people are not used to it. All of a sudden you start to hear the sound of your own voice, everyone's looking at you. It can be difficult, but it's fine. And this is where you get the support of the chair. you get these supportive members and officers around you as well. But yeah, be a part of it, especially if, as a member, you've got some interest or an area of expertise. You think, I can add value here, or maybe representations have been made to you locally. Yeah, so ask questions and contribute to that. Help the chair to formulate the recommendations. I think that's really important. Is their understanding the same as yours? Have they understood it correctly? Can you help them with that? And then that self-reflection as well. It's really important to evaluate how successful it's been. So at the end of each meeting, maybe, if you've got any thoughts then, as part of the work program, you can build in some of this to say what works well, what doesn't. You know, maybe too many meetings, too few meetings, within the, the appropriate format, all of these sorts of things. And you can also evaluate your own performance as members as well. Did I do what others expected me to do? Did I play my part? Could I have prepared more? Was the objective? Was I fair? And so on. So it's just that holding a mirror up at the end of it and saying, was it good? How can I improve? How can I do it better? Any points, queries, questions? Okay. Okay, so we've talked about questioning strategies. This is the synergy side of it. So yeah, committees do work better when they act as a team. As a team, not as a pack. It's not a hunting pack or anything of the sort, and we'll come on to some of the questions now. But it's there so that you can get the most out of the session and do it in the right way. Because when you're asking questions, what I would suggest is if you can set people at ease so they feel comfortable with you, you've explained the ground rules and they're happy to talk about why they're there and the areas that you want them to cover, so much the better. So work as a team, put them at ease and get people to talk to you, give you the evidence, give you the responses that you need. To do that, question strategies can definitely help. So you've got limited time available to you. Everyone is busy. You've got lots of other things to do. So you need to make the most of that. So again, think about that forward work plan. Think about each meeting, each cycle. Where are you? What are you've been asked to do? And then within that, you can then start to establish lines of inquiry. So where are you going with your questioning? They're not just random. They're leading towards a recommendation or a conclusion at the end of it. So you've got this thread that takes you through it. So yeah, you can agree the lines of inquiry in advance. That's fine. But that can open the door to other questions as you go along. So, one answer might prompt another question, and we'll cover that in a second, which is absolutely fine. But if you're always on the same theme or the same line of inquiry, you also then give the cabinet member, the officer, whoever it is that you're asking questions of, they understand where you're coming from. They know what it's about, and it's about making sure they're informed, and you can get the best out of them because they understand you a little bit better. So it's really important. Opinions or observations. We're starting to stray a little bit away from what the questions are about, what they meant to cover. Especially if some of those, and I know this can be difficult. It's very difficult not to be political, but that's not the purpose of scrutiny. So you may have some views on certain things, but again, it's making sure that you stay focused, you stay on point, and you're there for that reason, and not to score political points or use it as a means of opposition. It isn't about that. Stick to the subject matter and the context of that. If questions have already been answered, you don't need to ask them again unless you felt it wasn't answered thoroughly enough or something's missing. You could ask for clarification, or keep asking questions. was going to say something else. It is important that you keep asking questions until you got the information you need. But you may not always get it at the meeting. Sometimes, and this reflects really on the preparation beforehand. If that's happened and it's all planned and programmed, you stand a much better chance of getting the information you need from those you're asking the questions, or you're putting the questions to. It's not meant to be a quiz or a memory test for them. Officers and other members want to do their best, so they want to make sure that you've got what you've got. They're clear on it. They can prepare for it. So that's not to say you're never going to get to a situation where, or you're ever going to get to a situation where they've got all the information that you need, and you don't want to ask any more questions. That's been unrealistic, but at least you give yourself the best chance of doing that, rather than deferring things or asking for follow-ups. And then the key one there is listen to the answers, and if you need to modify or ask supplementary questions, that's fine. But it's the listening thing that's really important, and active listening as well. So show you're listening. You can, things that I'm doing, you can nod, you can give the signs that you've understood what they're saying, or even if you're repeating some things that have been said already because you want to include that in another question, again, it shows that you're interested, and you want to know more for the right reasons. Everyone okay with that? Yeah. Okay, so we talked about questioning techniques. I'm guessing people have heard about open and closed questions. Yeah. Now we've taken this slide from a different presentation, but it does illustrate the point. It does make a point. An open question, so it's not specific, and you're giving somebody a chance to tell you all about something without being, without feeling they're under too much pressure to give you a very precise answer. So with this one, can you explain what your role is in relation to providing the library service? It's a nice opener, gets them relaxed, they understand, like, okay, I can talk about that. They get used to speaking, used to the sound of their voice, and it starts that dialogue, and it starts that relationship going in the meeting, so people know that they can be confident about saying whatever they need to say and be okay about it. Another example there, tell us a little about the problems you've had keeping libraries open. Now, again, you need to be careful with some of this because the answers can go on and on and on. So you've got to manage that time. And sometimes it might take you down a different route when you didn't intend to go down. So be prepared to rein that in if you need to. But really good open questions to get people speaking. And as members, you can be confident as well that you played your part in the process to get it going and get the dialogue moving. Those questions, a bit more direct. How much will that cost? So that's a very narrow answer you're expecting there. But depending on the circumstances, depending on what you want to know, that might be appropriate. But again, if you go straight in with that, can be difficult because does that set the right tone, or are people starting to think, oh, this is going to get a little bit difficult, a bit stressful, a bit adversarial, and it's not meant to be that. It's constructive challenge. Again, it's difficult because depending on the subject, I do understand things can get a bit more fraught at times, depending on what the issues are. Some more examples there. Is this a statutory requirement? Again, be careful with some of this because the answer will be yes or no. The conversation stops there. If you want to develop that a little bit, you can follow that up with, can we use reserves for this? Yeah. But again, the answer might be yes or no. So what's the atmosphere like? What's the environment like when you're trying to get a conversation, get a dialogue going, and develop your understanding of something? And if you started off with a questioning strategy, and you've got some key lines that are required that you want to pursue, These will help you to do that. So it gets you from the wide down to the narrow, into the more of the challenging questions. And then you've got supplementary questions. Now, again, this shows active listening because you've spoken about, the example that we've got there. You said that the public were involved with making this decision, who was involved and how. So the first part of that is that you've understood what was said, you've listened to it, you've asked a previous question to this, and now you're developing it. Now you want to sort of just take it on a little bit further. So from somebody who has to answer those questions from their perspective, there's nothing wrong with this as long as they understand this is what scrutiny is about. Come back to the point. It's not a quiz. It's not a memory test. It's not meant to make people feel really, really uncomfortable. You're trying to find out, whatever information you're trying to get, whatever objective you've got, or key line of inquiry. That's what this is about. And the chances are you will start to go down this route as you develop the strategy. And then you said you chose this option because it makes economic sense. Can you explain exactly what you mean by this? So again, it gives enough opportunity for whoever's responding to you to say, right, this is why we're doing it. And don't forget that if the public can, take part, or are taking part in these meetings, there's the transparency as well. So you're showing that you've done your preparation, you've drawn everything together, you're asking supplementary questions, you are taking this beyond what might sound a little bit stilted otherwise. So I think that's really, really positive. This just builds on what I just said there. So asking challenging questions. So the basic principle is, and this is the funnel questioning technique, and you've got this in the guides that's available to you as well. So start broad and end narrow. So the broad, those are the open questions, allow people to respond to you. Listen to the tone, content, and doubt or uncertainty, because that can creep in. It might be about the particular thing that you just asked them, or it might be that they're nervous in that environment. So again, it's just understanding why that might be. Be respectful, absolutely important. Again, put yourself in somebody else's position is difficult. If you are put on the spot and somebody's being rude or disrespectful or discourteous to you, it's not what it's about. And often then that becomes the focus of everyone's attention, not the subject matter that where you're trying to get to the crux of. So I think that's really important. And yeah, be prepared to wait for an answer. I might have to do that once or twice today, but that's okay. Own the silence, as they say. You don't necessarily have to jump straight in because you feel it's slightly awkward or slightly embarrassing. It's not to say you shouldn't, but sometimes what people are trying to do is to reflect on the question you just asked them, to process it, to understand it, and they're just about to give you an answer. So that's really important that you manage that well, and it doesn't put people off, because what happens after that, the rest of that discussion then would probably be uncomfortable. So it's about keeping the dialogue going. So just to mention on that last point about being respectful, I'm guessing everyone will be aware of the Code of Conduct, 10 Principles in Public Life. These are the Nolan Principles. There were 7 of those, but in Wales we've got an extra 3, and those are the ones with the asterisk next to them there. But you're acting in the public interest. That should be the main driver. I'll just run through them very quickly. So selflessness, yeah, it's not about you. Honesty, I mean, all of these things you would presume would be there anyway, but these are the yardsticks. And if you're not sure how to behave or how to come across, follow these principles and you won't go far wrong. I think that's the key to this. Integrity, propriety, duty to uphold the law, stewardship. You're looking after these things for the time being, so that's really important that you do that well. Either for you, next time if re-elected, or if somebody else is, you're looking after those resources of the council. Being objective, open-minded, not closed-minded. Listen to what's said, ask questions. If you don't understand something, try and ask to develop your understanding. I think that's really important. And be clear that's why you're doing it. It's not to be difficult, it's because you want to understand it. So can I just check my understanding? That gives you that opportunity. Equality and respect, absolutely. Openness, that's really important. To be accountable and to show leadership as well. Not just because somebody might be a chair or a very senior or chief officer. It's really important that we all do that. And I think we can all find ourselves, not just in public life, but elsewhere as well. If you're parents or whatever it might be, leadership comes through very often in all aspects of our lives. So it's really important that we do that. Those are the standards of behaviour. Any questions on those? Okay. Right. Just back to an earlier comment. Any recommendations that Scrutiny makes should add value. And we talk about smart recommendations. Make the most of your time. It's really important that you do that. When you look at the range of subject areas that you've got to cover in a local authority, I know I mentioned this earlier, but it's vast. It's very, very wide. So it's not surprising that a lot of this places demands on your time as members and officers as well. So I just ask you to bear that in mind, because from an officer's point of view, they will often be the ones who have to respond to this. So it's really important that they're clear. Plus also across cabinet and full council as well. So be specific. What are you asking for? From who and when? Is it focused on a measurable change? Will it make a difference? Is it something you could look at? If that was on a tracking spreadsheet, would you know what it is? Is it achievable? Realistically achievable and evidence-based? Or is it just speculative and you hope for the best? So the more precise you can be, the better. Relevant. So if we can link this threads, and it all comes back through the work program. So you've got your meetings, everything has been arranged so that it can be dealt with good media management principles, good agenda management, and so on. You've got your objectives, your key lines of inquiry. You've got your strategies as a committee, questioning strategy, and you've also got your questions as an individual as well. So all of that should lead you to a point where your questioning is relevant and it's related to required improved outcome. And made at a time when you can realistically influence decisions. So again, planning, preparation, really important. You will know when the budget rounds are coming up. You will know when other things happen, other decisions that are about to be made or recommendations. All of these things are key. So you can build these into the program and make it as scientific as you can. And for those receiving the recommendations, if you know this is why they've been made, you should respond appropriately. So it's not just, it shouldn't just be random, recommendations that are not helpful or they're meant for a different purpose. There's a reason behind it, and there's a system behind it, and there's a process, and it will add value to how the council does its business. And then should you continue to monitor the action, it may be that you don't, but quite often, whatever you are asking for may take a year, 2 years to keep track of that. So it depends on what it is. You're a large public organisation, so you need some sort of a tracker there to keep tabs on that. But again, be wary of getting reports for information sake only. So just to keep track on that. Any questions on that section? We're nearly there. Nearly finished. So just thinking about some of the topics there that you might be thinking about as suitable for scrutiny. Yeah, it's great having a forward work program, and hopefully, that will deliver for you what you need to do, so you can plan and manage everything. But in amongst all of that, you're going to get other issues that are going to come up from time to time, inevitably, and those will force their way onto the agendas. So there will be a little bit of pressure coming on about that. So just some thoughts, and again, don't worry about being something wrong or silly in your response. No such thing, because that is the purpose of the session. But if you were faced with that first one there, so you've had complaints from local residents across the council area about whatever it might be. Would you think that's something that should come through a scrutiny committee, scrutiny process, or not? Do you think complaints generally, so if somebody comes to you as a councillor and they've got complaints about whatever it might be, they're unhappy with a certain part of the service delivery, is that something you think would be suitable for scrutiny, or is there a better way of resolving that? Sarah, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, so we've got a corporate complaints sort of process, as all sort of local authorities have. So most sort of complaints would be better, I suppose, and more appropriately routed through that process, because it would go into whatever relevant department then for sort of appropriate advice and a response. But I suppose it depends whether or not there is maybe a group or a surge then of not necessarily complaints, but complaints and or sort of feeling about a particular issue or something like that, that is more than just a couple of individual complaints. Then I think that is something, depending on what it was that scrutiny might consider.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about responses being timely. Now, for some of these things, it might just be that it is a straightforward complaint, and there is a different route for that, and it can get resolved quickly, and it doesn't need the full weight of scrutiny behind it. But it may be that it forms part of a bigger picture. It's the latest thing that's come through. It's added to the feeling, the feedback that you've had, and it's from a wider group. Suddenly, this might be something you think, hang on, this could be escalated. This is something now that we might want to take a closer look at. But certainly, things like individual complaints, there are other better ways of dealing with that for the individual. So it depends on what it is. But again, it's keeping our sense of perspective, raising it up so it becomes more strategic, more focused on broader outcomes than just narrow ones. Okay, so Right, a recently reprioritised item in the council's risk register about the likelihood of a cyber attack following threats to the council and a recent attack on a neighbouring authority. Is that something you think would be suitable for scrutiny? Andrew?
Okay, that's an interesting one, Gareth, I think. Based on the nature of the item as well, and scrutiny being a public meeting, if scrutineers wanted to go into some of the detail, it might put us at extra risk. So perhaps the nature of the scrutiny could be considered, perhaps a workshop to understand some of those details, and then a cover report following that workshop, rather than perhaps doing it in full public view. So I just wanted to add that point with this one, but also having a good understanding of the risk register and how that impacts on the organisation may actually benefit all scrutineers, particularly in their forward planning as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Again, it depends on you're right, the issue itself. You can always hold things in a part 1 or a part 2 environment, so things could be exempt, so not available to the public. But interestingly, you mentioned a workshop. There's a different way of doing it, so not just to one side, but in more detail, in more depth as well. That you can give it more time, more attention. So absolutely, Alice.
No, sorry, Andrew got there quicker. You put his hand up quicker than me. Sorry, Gareth. But yeah, it's just about that. The challenge of answering questions which may pose a greater risk to the authority if they're answered in a public forum. So I think it's back to the point, how you approach the item would need to be significantly thought about. I'm not saying we couldn't do it and facilitate something, but we'd have to be very careful in how we answered questions in a public forum on that item. Yeah, absolutely. And we all want to be transparent. We all want to be open and involve the public. But it isn't without risks. And this is where you've got the officers that will help members to think about some of these things if they haven't already. We know you've got specialists there. You've got your, the monitoring officer and so on for other types of issues. But this is where it's really helpful to listen to what those views are, because there's a reason for it. And it isn't just to avoid discussing certain things, because it could be a wicked issue and it's slightly embarrassing. That isn't the reason behind it. There's a proper reason behind it. So then the next one, complaints from a road of residents about dog fouling due to a local dog breeder exercising dogs on the pavement and in a local small park. Yeah, any thoughts on that one? Is this a strategic issue? Is this one that affects the council? Angela?
I think this is a specific issue, but not for scrutiny, to be honest, because there's one individual, and it should be dealt with that particular breeder. But then be mindful that the Parks Department will have a role in ensuring that the dog waste is not continuing, but certainly not scrutiny. Yeah, everyone else agree with that? Absolutely, it's too low levels, too close to the an individual. It needs to come up from there. So absolutely. Right, a future decision by Cabinet about school closures. Kerry.
Yeah, I definitely think this is something that would have to go to scrutiny. It would be a massive issue in relation to consultation, etc. So I think this is something that would definitely have to.
Yeah. Anyone disagree with that? No, thank you, Kay. And you can see the extent of it. This is a much bigger issue. And already there, you were starting to think about some key lines of inquiries. So, consultation, the wider impact, and these are the sorts of things that can start to emerge. And you can start to talk about the process. Did they go through the proper consultation process? Is the council exposed to risk? If we are, what is it? And you can start to develop these. that one is likely to be more emotive for for obvious reasons. But yeah, a petition from care home staff about conditions for their care home residents. Any thoughts on that one? It's interesting, the pause, isn't it? I think for some of these, you might think, yeah, they're polarized. This one I definitely wouldn't. This one I definitely would. Gets more difficult the closer to the middle they get.
Hi. I think this is similar to what Sarah said earlier. We've got a petitions policy, and I think if they wanted this to go to scrutiny, they'd have to demonstrate the petitions policy hadn't dealt with it in the way that they wanted it dealt with, or not the way they wanted it, hadn't dealt with it. So the issues were still there were still problems, and they were significant. I think as long as they can demonstrate that the petition policy was adhered to, I don't think they would be going to scrutiny.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's a really good point. It's just to expect the unexpected. You don't. Sometimes it can be easy to focus on something so much you forget. Actually, and you mentioned it there, petitions policy. There could be another way to deal with this. You've already got a process for it, and you can follow that instead. So, or that can help you to get where you need to go. But the full follow of the process, again, you've got to be a little bit guarded against that. You've got to be aware of that. Angela.
For me, I suppose the biggest question is it a care home that we manage, or is it one we commission? Because, where does CIW sit in with this as well as regulators? So, would you accept something if it was a care home that we were commissioning services from? Would you accept a petition from those staff, or if they're local authority staff? But certainly, one of the things, this would be something we'd look at more through our commissioning arrangements and through our regulators rather than the scrutiny, unless we were seeing consistent themes in the number of care homes that were managed by us. So it's a bit of a grey area, I think. So you probably need a bit more detail rather than just a statement in order to determine whether it should be through scrutiny or via other sources. Thanks.
Thank you. And again, it's developing that understanding. You've got partial information. You've got bits that you think, it could lead me to think this or that. But there is an opportunity to get that clarity, and that's why you're asking the question. Again, it's for reasons. It's to get you to a stage where you think, right, I know where this should be going, or I can feel confident with it, and then it can get the either scrutinized in a particular way or not. It depends. It depends what responses you get. But some key lines of inquiry are starting to come out again. You need more information to develop your understanding before this gets anywhere near a formal report. So it's just making sure that you've got the background to it before this can start to gain traction. And then the last one then, complaints received from across the council area from residents and businesses regarding new parking measures following the decision taken by Cabinet last year to replace on-road parking in key retail areas with cycle lanes. Would that be a priority for scrutiny? What are the risks you think that might apply in this case? What would happen to that public interest side of it if you're acting in the public's interest? Where would that rank in your list of priorities? It's tricky, isn't it? It's not quite as straightforward, but in this instance, you've got complaints received from across the council, so it's not localized. It's right across the area from residents and businesses. So you've got this being triangulated now about new parking measures, so it affects everybody. And that decision was taken by Cabinet last year. So it's a decision they've made on road parking and key retail areas with cycle lanes. So this affects an awful lot of people in different ways. Andrew.
Thanks, Gareth. I think it could well be on a scrutiny forward plan. But I think something I want to flag here really is managing expectations then. So because it's on a forward plan, it doesn't necessarily mean to say that every decision will be overturned. And I think sometimes it can be of the opinion that if it does appear on a scrutiny forward plan and it goes to scrutiny and something is called in, this would be a kind of call in terms of a cabinet decision being made. It's about managing expectations and not necessarily reversing a decision. It may be that we learn lessons for future implementation, or limitations can be placed on the order. In this case, it's probably been to whatever planning committees or whatever as well. But I think it's managing expectations around what that call-in will then result in.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Any other comments on that? That is a real important point, because we talked earlier about leadership. That's important as well, so that when these decisions are made, it's done for a reason. It's done for a reason at the time. So you hopefully will have the recommendations, the clear trail there that will bring you to that point. And with some of these, some people might be delighted that there are new parking measures for all sorts of reasons, but others might not. You can't please all the people all the time, with fairness quote. So it is a difficult one, and managing expectations is absolutely key. But having gone through it all, you think, yeah, actually, we have to do it. There might be reasons why you've got to do it. It may not all be within your gifts to do otherwise, but at least from a scrutiny perspective, you would know, yeah, this has been done properly. You might not like the merits of what's been done, but it's been done in the proper way, and it's been done for the right reasons. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Some scrutiny myths busted. So again, we've discussed a lot of these as we've gone through. So it's not the job of scrutiny to oppose the cabinet. Challenges, yes, holds the cabinet to account on behalf of the council and the public. So that's you're trying to get to the best outcomes for the public. So that's really important. It's not a rubber stamp exercise. It's not going through the motions or any sort. So it shouldn't really be considered by scrutiny unless you can make a positive difference. Make the most of your time, plan anything, get the right issues coming to you, so you can do that. Again, I know we've got officers and members in the room, so please feel free to jump in. It's not a place for officers to keep members updated on what's happening in their service. Back to the point where limited time resources, so nothing goes the scrutiny for noting if you can help it. It really shouldn't do that, because again, you haven't got that thread and taking you all the way through it. It's not about regular committee meetings. Yes, and important, but they should act in whatever where we best secure meaningful outcomes. So if you think we need to change the time, the location of the meeting, the right time, the right place, and so on, think about these things. But there are implications and consequences, because if you're going to move it or do a site visit or do another form of scrutiny through a workshop, absolutely key that people are aware of that and they can plan their own times as well. And officers supporting members, you will need an opportunity to do that, even if it's to put people on notice that you're going to turn up and carry out the scrutiny in a different way. Being on a scrutiny committee is not easy. We talked earlier about the amount of information, the quantity of information that you've got to get through, to read, to take part in it. But good preparation is essential. Otherwise, you might spend too much of the meeting catching up and not enough time to get on the front foot with a proper, understanding, questioning strategy, supporting the chair, and everybody working towards the same objective. And yeah, officers don't run the scrutiny function. It's led by the chairs on the committees. Now, the officers support the function. And in terms of the information he needs and giving you the responses he needs. But again, back to some of those Nolan principles earlier, it's all about that respect, it's about understanding and making sure that everybody knows what their roles is and being reasonable about it, being respectful and being realistic. But the more these things can be planned, the better. It should be member-led by the chairs and the committees, but supported and advised by officers as you go through the process, and that's right from start to end. I'll send these links through as well. If you do want to know more about the arrangements in Merthyr, you've got an excellent website. That was my starting point with this. If you really do want to go through the Constitution, you could. But again, be aware, a lot of this is where the officers can advise you on this stuff. It can be quite complex. And we've already seen some of the things you're going to discuss or consider will cut across other areas as well. So that's really important. But it is there. That's what it sets it all out. And then the last one, and I know I've gone through these in reverse order, it's a really good practical guide. That's a resource pack for you. That's been produced locally by the team there. So you've got that information to hand. And yeah, there's an awful lot of information available to you. The other one, and I'll come to this on the end, but there's a counsellor's guide as well. That's a WLGA link where you can check that out for more information. So you're not on your own. You've got a superb team there of officers. The feedback I've had from previous involvement with you is that's appreciated and valued. And you've got each other as well. You can get that support from each other. Good chairs, good vice chairs. There's a lot of support there for you. But again, this is the context that it operates. So is there anything else you want to ask now? Either myself or Sarah and the team are here as well, if you wanted to ask any questions.
Terence, can I just come in? Sorry, Sarah's had to send an apology. She's had to leave. So she just wanted to thank you, but we'll do that. I'll do that on your behalf at the end, if that's okay.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. I didn't spot that. It's not come up on my screen, but that's down to me, not Sarah. So thank you for that. Any other questions? There's the last one, the counsellor's guide. Again, there's a lot of information out there. I'm just there for you. Yeah. Right. It's 5:45. I'm taking you through. It's a fairly weighty session on scrutiny, but it's an important one. So thank you for that. Is there anything you find that you want to ask me now, or if not, we will be sending the slides through. I know Neil and Jane have got them, and you've got those other links as well. So
yeah. Terence, as I said, if I can just reiterate, thank you for your presentation today. It's been really useful, and I know everyone has really got a lot from it. Just to tell members and our senior managers that, yeah, we will be sending the presentation out, and we've recorded it as well. So for those that have had to leave perhaps throughout the session, they'll have a chance to go back. So thank you very much, Gareth.
Thank you for that. That's appreciated as always. Really appreciate that. Good luck to you. You're a good authority. So yeah, there's lots to do. And especially as we come through the budget runs now as well. So some of those pressures are going to start to come on, and decisions and recommendations and so on are going to have to be made. So yeah, best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gareth. I'll speak to you next week.
Welcome, lad.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.